And we're back, and you are listening to The Morning Show right here on KSVY Sonoma, 91.3 FM on the left-hand side of the dial. We're streaming around the world at ksvy.org, wherever you are tuning in from. I sure do appreciate your ears. I thank you so much. We're broadcasting from the beautiful city of Sonoma, and I have the very good fortune to sit in a seat where I get to have community conversations with people from all different spheres of our community and region. And it's a real honor to do that. Today is no different. I want to thank Lisa for joining us today earlier. What do I have ahead? Well, I am actually been invited to be a part of a very interesting conversation that's going to happen on February 15th at our historic Sebastiani Theater. We're going to be screening a film called Running for the Mountains. It's a documentary later next month. It's presented by Wake Up Sonoma. It's an award-winning documentary, Running for the Mountains. It's a film that follows more than a decade of environmental, political, and human struggle in Appalachia. Now, I was born in Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, in the northwestern part of the rural part of that state. I moved to Sonoma when I was 10. When I came out here, no one ever knew how to say Virginia. They always said, "You're from West Virginia." It might have been the accent, which is now gone, but I certainly have some roots and connection to that part of the country before I moved out here on Amtrak in 1982. So the film asks what happens when communities are treated as expendable in the name of profit. It was directed by and produced by Babette Hogan and Julie Eisenberg, who will be joining us here today. They began filming in West Virginia in 2008 and stayed with the story all the way through 2024 when it was released. What they uncovered, I've watched the film a couple times now, is a powerful portrait of dark money, political capture, and environmental devastation. And I was telling them off air that as I drive in down the 12, could you imagine Hood Mountain, the entire top of it being removed? This is common practice there. We're going to get into more of that. So joining me today are Julie Eisenberg, Babette Hogan, the director and producers, as well as Janelle Kelman. She is a nationally recognized expert on climate risk, public safety, and economic resilience, and the founder of the Center for Sea Rise Solutions. Everybody knows that I've been reporting on the Doomsday Clock announcement on Tuesday. I interviewed the executive director yesterday, gang. Obviously not good news there. It was moved 4 seconds closer to midnight, and we're now at 85 seconds to midnight, and climate was an absolutely important part of that conversation and that analysis. So before we get into the conversation with my guest listeners, I'm going to play you the trailer for the audio piece for Running for the Mountains. You can use your favorite search engine, search for Running for the Mountains, or just go to runningforthemountains.com to start getting the skinny on this very important film. So here's the trailer. Check this out.
We'll extract every lump of coal. We will extract the gas and oil. And West Virginia will do her part. We've always done our part.
The people of West Virginia and in Appalachia, we've become a sacrifice zone. We're dying here.
I don't think we expected to end up in such a deep story.
Too close to call it.
Follow the dollar is all you have to do in anything. Follow the dollar.
The words dropped like boulders. Senator Joe Manchin suddenly threw President Biden's Build Back Better agenda into new turmoil.
So what does this mean for the fight against climate change now then?
How much farther down here are they?
It works different in this state.
You have no grounds to arrest me, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I sure do.
That is the trailer for the film. And again, just use your favorite search engine or go to runningforthemountains.com to start learning more. But we're going to get into it. Let's welcome our guests, Julie, Janelle, and Babette. Welcome to KSVY Sonoma 91.3 Community Radio. For the first time, I hope not the last time. Welcome. How's everybody doing this morning?
Thank you for hosting us here. We're really appreciative of getting the word out and sharing the complications of our political system with a broader audience.
Where's everyone hailing from this morning? We're all joined here on Zoom, but where are you at on the planet?
I'm here in Sausalito,
Cool.
California, looking out on the bay.
Awesome.
I live in Mill Valley, so another Marinite.
Nice.
I'm in San Rafael, though I'm soon moving up to Petaluma.
Right
so
on.
I'll be a Sonomite real soon.
Hey, we're loud and clear on the FM dial in Petaluma now, so that's awesome. The reason we're loud and clear over there is after the big fires, KSVY radio was one of the only ways that people were getting information, but it was kind of a shadowy signal just in the valley. We said, well, we don't want to leave our neighbors out of that in case of the next big wildfire, which is certainly a potential here. It's wildfire season all year long. So now we're 450 square miles after that upgrade. So yeah, Petaluma, we hear you over there. I'm glad you're with us. So let's get into some questions about the film. So let's go to the origin story, and this will be to Julie and Babette to start. You began filming in 2008. What first drew you to West Virginia, and at what point did you realize that that wasn't just a regional story, but it was actually a national one?
We were actually covering a number of different, what we termed at that time, electoral activists who had a very green agenda. And one of the people that we met, and it happened to be at the Green Party convention, was Jesse Johnson from West Virginia. And at the time, he was running for the candidacy of president, the nominee for presidency for the Green Party. And at the same time, he was running consecutively, he was running a gubernatorial race. And we thought it was kind of crazy that he was doing both things, but he was so desperate to get his message out to as many people as possible. So in a sense, his fever introduced us to the problem. We were dubious at first, I would say. Like, no, there's no way anybody's going to blow up their mountains like this. There's no way they're going to create such devastation within their own communities. Very hard to believe. But once we landed there and once we actually started meeting the people and seeing what was going on, it was clear. In terms of it becoming a national implication, that sort of grew on us more and more.
The film took more than a decade to make. What changed most dramatically over? I mean, I heard the realization that came while you were there. But what politically, environmentally, or even personally, as you stayed with the story for so long, what kind of changed over the 10 years? You want to take that one, Julie?
Sure. Well, over the 10 years, we saw mountaintop removal continuing, but we also saw the emergence of hydrofracking, and that came into a different part of the state. West Virginia has, its terrain makes it difficult to navigate because there's so many mountains and hills and what they call hollers, the little valleys in there. The southern part of West Virginia was a coal mining area, but there were other more agricultural areas more to the north or to the west towards Ohio, and that became a boom place for fracking. And at the same time, we were becoming aware of other environmental issues, such as the fact that the rivers there were used to transport either coal or for use in chemical manufacturing. So we started to see all these different issues coming up, and we also were following these candidates who are trying to get the message out, hopefully win an office and make change. But there was one candidate who we followed who was in office as a state legislator. So we were following that. And then at the same time, we were encountering Joe Manchin, who was then the governor. And there were a lot of protests in terms of trying to come to Joe Manchin. And we watched over the 10 years he rise to become a national figure as a U.S. senator. And from there, he became part of the U.S. Energy Committee. And there he had influence not only what was happening in West Virginia, but in terms of how we were regulating our energy and how we were getting our energy and on into the future.
The film really lays out how political power, these extractive industries, and then the media control, how that all intersected. And I thought you really talked more about just outcomes, but how these systems work. But it brought up important questions to me, and I seek your mentorship. You know, as a community journalist, a community radio station, you can imagine, you know, that line between doing community journalism versus what advocacy sounds like. You know, we have an education license, you know, so you've spoken openly about wrestling with that objectivity versus advocacy. At what point did staying neutral no longer feel ethical for you, or did you start to understand that idea of neutral or objective in a different way?
I would say that Julie and I came to that point at different points in the arc. So as much as we have struggled to come to an agreement about what our story was, we were reflective of what was going on nationally in politics. So I think now you have many people who would have been traditional media. They're on Substack and they're plowing their way and they're attacking what has been considered legacy media at this point. But Julie and I really struggled with that quite a bit. I think for me, getting arrested was a real pivot point in terms of me grappling with just how difficult this whole situation was. They arrested me because I had a camera in my hand and I was in a car. There was nothing else wrong with the situation.
That was a crazy scene in the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're seeing this kind of violence or attack now, but we were seeing it then in 2012. We had heard about it from the people of West Virginia before, but we were like, oh, it can't really be as bad as that. They're exaggerating because they want our attention. Well, no. I mean, we went there and that was our experience. So, and may I explain something else about the media in West Virginia, which had been predated what we're experiencing today, but it's that they never had internet. They still don't have good internet, even though they've gotten funding. That funding has just gotten slipped into what they called gold servers that are stuffed in the basement of the Capitol. It was never instituted throughout the communities.
That is true through a lot of rural communities. There
for a reason,
and that's what we're coming to realize is just like many AM stations have disappeared and been brought up by very particular groups. And so there are these real news deserts. In my reporting on the announcement from the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, one of their specific reasons for moving the clock was not just misinformation. They are directly qualifying disinformation. So it's kind of two-pronged. On one hand, there is the misinformed in that, maybe someone makes a mistake or in the reporting and then that goes out. Those things could be corrected. But is there an active campaign of disinformation to actually trick you, lie to you, make you believe in something that is not true, or even, and I think what your documentary illustrates, vote against your own interests. And that brings me to my next question, and both of you can kind of jump on it. I'd be curious what to say, and maybe you have some personal tales about the people at the center of these communities. When you met families living feet from these toxic sites, poisoned water, unregulated extraction around them, working around labor unions, working with non-labor folk. How did you earn the trust of these communities that had been ignored or harmed for generations? That seemed like a big part of the job down there.
I think for us it was helpful that Jesse, who brought us to West Virginia, was already involved in activist communities as well as political circles, and he'd been on the ground there.
Can you introduce Jesse to our listeners, just because we don't have him on the panel today?
Well, yeah. I wish I could. Jesse was a dynamic person. He loved the stage, gorgeous voice, and loved his state more than anything. And, he had dreams to other things, but like many West Virginians, he came home to take care of family. And then he became activated because there was a flood in his area that was environmentally driven, something we have here in California, actually. he ran for office many times, and he had the most political runs against Joe Manchin of any person ever. He ran against him for governor a couple times, and then he ran against him for U.S. Senate. And it was to raise the fact that there were these environmental issues going on. And sadly, Jesse passed away almost a year ago.
He's a very important figure in the film, and smart, sharp, and strong, and unflappable. Really amazing fellow.
Yeah, a wonderful person who changed our lives. He unfortunately died of a rare cancer. But to get back to your original question, from Jesse led to other people that we met, and many of the people who are on the front lines, as you said, like working around all this environmental devastation, are people who did become part of that activist community, even though it cost them a lot in the face of their neighbors, who were still very, pro-extraction, pro-coal. But in West Virginia, I think a personal introduction counts for a lot, and also the fact that Babette and I returned again and again and again over the years. They took us in like family. So it just took a personal word from people whom they knew to say, these people are okay, they're coming back, they're not just like taking a story, grabbing it and run. And that was extremely important to us as filmmakers.
I'd like to, if I could add to that, so there was a point, if you want a backstory, in 2011 when we were there for the Blair Mountain March, which was commemorating the centennial of a big uprising of labor against the coal companies, and many activists from out of state and from within state were doing this march, and I came dressed professionally, not over professionally, but professionally, and in the midst of all of these other journalists who were definitely integrated into the activist community, they suddenly turn their cameras at me like, who are you? We don't know who you are. And there was one person there who, also with the camera, also a photojournalist, who just smiled, and we connected, and that is Paul Brown, who shows up later in the film. We connected at that moment whereas I was feeling a little cornered, perhaps, he understood, he could see. And, if you're sincere, people can recognize it. Sincere people recognize sincerity.
Can I jump in here for a second, just because we're talking about things that may seem so far away, but
absolutely, Janelle.
Yeah.
I was going to come to you next. Would you please introduce your background and your force and work, and then give us an overview of what you heard so far.
Sure. Thanks, Ronnie, and thanks to the filmmakers for this tremendous film and for bringing this to me as an opportunity. You all know this. I'm an environmental and land use attorney. I live here in Marin County. I was the mayor of Sausalito. I have been in local government for a very long time. I run a climate risk nonprofit focused on flooding, wildfires, and insurance. And I'm running for lieutenant governor of California because all of these issues around cost of living, public safety, and climate risk are really inextricably linked. The reason I wanted to jump in is because when Julie and Babette and Lisa brought this project to me, I have to say, on a personal note, I'm from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton in Pennsylvania. That is the Pocono area. It's coal country. So I grew up seeing what happens when an economy is built around one extractive industry and then people are left behind. And I just felt like, wow, I really have something to contribute here because I grew up in this space. And so I think this film is a reminder that climate is not an abstract debate. It's about power, it's about accountability, and it's about making lives count. And in the current political moment, and I'm so struck, Babette, by how you were treated in 2012 in your vehicle with a phone filming. I mean, we all know what, of course, sadly happened in Minnesota. It just echoes of that horrific nature. And in the current political moment, the pressure to deny reality or scapegoat communities is intense. So I'm interested, like all of you are, in the story of community leaders who keep showing up anyway, right, to protect their home, their water, and their future. And I think in California, we're living the same story in a different landscape between wildfire, smoke, flooding, and displacement. And I think that's the connectivity here between this amazing film and what we're experiencing throughout California.
Very well stated, and it reminds me that the film describes Appalachia as the canary in the coal mine, quote unquote. So what do you most want audience outside of West Virginia, and this is where Janelle was going, including here in California, to recognize in that warning? What is it, what is West Virginia telling the rest of us? And I think you can all kind of comment on that. Start with Babette, maybe, if you're ready.
Well, the main thing that comes up for me is the throwing away of society for the sake of work, for the sake of finances, for the sake of for the sake of keeping a job. It's just not worth it. And then the other thing is the media. The media is so important, specifically in West Virginia. We still have some legs here in California, but in West Virginia, it's all owned by the very industries that are extracting water from it. And water is the key issue for West Virginia. That's why they're there. It's all that water. Beautiful, once beautiful water, pure water.
Julie, why is Appalachia the canary in the coal mine?
Well, they're the people that are told that it's their patriotic duty to sacrifice their land, sacrifice their health, and the cancer rates are indeed one of the highest in the nation there. The other thing is West Virginia was the canary in the coal mine because there was so much influence by industry there, influence on the politicians. And we're really witnessing that now here, all of us, in terms of deregulation by the EPA, permits being issued, so much development in a variety of ways that I'm sure we can discuss or Janelle can discuss. So, but we really wanted to talk about how money in politics just taints everything, and it has a real world impact, not just on the lives of people immediately there, but a ripple out effect as well. And, water doesn't share borders, air doesn't share borders, climate change gets accelerated, and we should care about the people of West Virginia and about all of us because this impacts all of us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Janelle?
Oh, well, yeah, so well said, Julie. I think Appalachia is the canary in the coal mine because it's where the country has seen early and intensely what happens when an economy is built around extraction and the true costs are passed on to communities. You see that long tail first, right? The damaged land and water, the public health impacts, and then politics gets distorted by power. And so it's an early warning for the rest of us. And one of the reasons that I want to run for statewide office is that California's version isn't mountaintop removal, but we have lessons. It's wildfire, it's smoke, it's flooding. And if you don't govern for prevention and accountability, families, communities, our economy really feel the impact. And right now we're feeling the ripple effects, even in communities that are stable. We know insurance costs are skyrocketing. Wildfire season is year round. We see the impacts to our bottom line and our electricity bills. And there's so many lessons, I think, to learn from this film that can be, really talked about here in California in a meaningful fashion.
Folks, if you're just tuning in.
May I add?
Oh, yes, please. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, may I add, we have drilling on the oil drilling offshore on the horizon. And we have our own hydrofracking issues and uncapped wells, which has been under many governorships that they haven't dealt with that. So we are culpable. We're just not as weak in terms of response, and the concentration of that particular hydrofracking is going on in Kern County, and so Kern County is kind of captured too.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, I am speaking with three amazing guests today. Janelle Kelman is here. She is the national recognized expert on climate risk, economic resilience, and public safety. She's also a candidate for California Lieutenant Governor. I have Julie Eisenberg and Babette Hogan here as well. They are filmmakers, and their film is called Running for the Mountains. It is a political story of dark money, environmental devastation, and brave people determined to protect the place they love. And it is screening at the Sebastiani Theater on Sunday, February 15th. It's a fundraiser for the local nonprofit Wake Up Sonoma. But more importantly, it's issues that I really think are we're going to thread the needle for you and say why is a mountaintop removal in West Virginia, why is it important to Californians? And I think there's a lot of reasons and ways we can connect the dots. And I'm going to turn to Janelle now to help us connect some of the dots. You work at the intersection of climate risk, public safety, economic resilience. When you watch this film, what feels most familiar, even here in California?
What feels most familiar is how the film connects land use with energy, with public health, with insurance, and with democracy. West Virginia may be extraction, but California has no shortage of climate risk. And I think that the takeaway is that the cost of inaction doesn't disappear. It ends up landing on communities and families and pocketbooks. And we see that across California. So I think it shows us just how important it is for California to connect the dots and build a prevention-first strategy with accountability baked in.
Yesterday, you and I touched base yesterday. I was excited to know if maybe you had joined in on that forum yesterday. It was called Our Climate Future, a forum with California's next governor. I'll post it on KSVY's Facebook page and on my personal if people are looking for it. Or just use your favorite search engine, search for a forum with California's next governor. It was they invited the 6 top polling candidates based on publicly available polling to come and talk about their vision of climate policy and here in the future. And of course, as Janelle's pointing out, that's all connected to economics, that's connected to quality of life, that's connected to public transport. Janelle, you checked it out, and you rub elbows with a few of those folks. Give us a little overview of what you saw, what you heard. Where are you at on all that?
Yeah, anybody wants to talk about running for office, it's fascinating. I do get to interact with the governor candidates pretty much weekly. We're all in the same meetings in the same rooms. That was interesting. It was the League of Conservation Voters for about 90 minutes. My main takeaway, affordability finally got treated as a climate issue, but the answers still weren't concrete enough. They all leaned into a sort of phrase that climate drives costs, especially electric bills and EV affordability. But even the critics of the status quo didn't really lay out a plan or a mechanism for getting bills down for regular people, regular households. The forum and the panelists got everybody to say that they'd support legislation to make oil companies pay for climate damages like wildfires. And that's important, but there was a huge gap on how we support workers through a just transition. And so for me, I'm not just pro-climate, I'm a climate risk expert. It's what I do every day. I work with ports, local governments, nonprofits, insurance and resilience partners on the real world collision between wildfire flooding, infrastructure, and costs. And I think most candidates genuinely care, but caring isn't governing. I have a plan that connects the dots to cut electricity bills in half by fixing the utility incentive, to fund year-round wildfire prevention, and to make community college free so Californians can get the jobs that make us safer and lower costs over time. So I'd like to see more actual plan and how we pay for it and mechanisms in place to connect the dots, because that's what it's going to take to move us forward in a real climate-ready California.
It wasn't a debate, everyone. It was a forum, and so there was a lot of room just to kind of make statements, move along, even though I thought the moderators did kind of try to get some solid answers. But in that forum, Katie Potter, Tom Steyer, Eric Swalwell, Xavier Becerra, I can't remember how to do his name.
Javier Becerra.
Becerra, thank you. Javier Becerra. And they all agreed. Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton were invited, but they did, I think, via video. In any case, all of those faces that might be familiar to, midterms are coming up. Gubernatorial election is coming up, everybody. You got to start doing your homework now. And we've got to put pressure on these leaders now to start answering questions and giving us some straight answers, not just political ones that are convenient. So your point is well taken, Janelle, and your skill zeroing in on where some of the omissions were pretty obvious there. So,
I mean, for your listeners, Ronnie, sorry to interrupt you. I'll just say wildfires are the hidden cost drivers in California right now. They are increasing everything from electricity to insurance even rent, even if your home is never going to burn, you are feeling the impact. So it is so much cheaper to prevent a wildfire than it is to pay for cleanup. And so I think we need to be really thinking very hard about leadership who knows how to do that from a land use and environmental perspective and can do it in a way that benefits all communities across socioeconomic status.
You kind of nailed what my next question was. I was just saying that West Virginia's story is extreme, but it's not unique. And how do these dynamics show up differently in places like Sonoma Valley or coastal California, another wildfire? But you just said it all. I mean, even if your house is not hit, it was similar to a point that was made about healthcare. You might not be on Medicare. But if 40%, that support, that 40% or so in California that infrastructure is making everybody's costs more manageable. And when you damage that base and that foundation, we're all going to feel it. So no one's an island. This is all very interconnected and complex, which can be overwhelming. Which brings me to our final question of the day, and I will say so we're going to have this event. We're also going to have a great discussion. I can't wait to have all of you in town. You are most welcome. I can't wait to roll out the red carpet. For people leaving the theater after we're all done, and they're asking, what can we actually do? Where does meaningful action really begin for folks out here on the ground that are feeling a little overwhelmed? Let's start with Janelle.
Yeah, a meaningful action means visibility, right? Talking about things when you see them, which is why this film is so important. We now have a record of what has happened. It means getting involved and holding your elected officials accountable, writing letters, writing postcards, but also showing up at the local level. Who was it? Tip O'Neill said all politics are local. Go to your local planning commission, go to your local CAL FIRE meeting, go to your local city council meeting and let your voice be heard, because real change starts close to home. And that's the opportunity we have here with this film and with California. I'll just say, mark your calendars, February 19th, we are going to do a live stream with John Clark Mills, the founder of the Watch Duty app, to talk about fire prevention. So if you want more information, JanelleKelman.com. But that's how you get involved. You show up, you listen, and you continue to make sure your voice is heard.
Fantastic. Let's go to Julie. From story to action, Julie, what can we actually do? They're saying to themselves as they walk out, overwhelmed after our film and chat. What can I actually do? What do you think?
I hope people will talk to each other and start to think about what action they do want to take, and that we're all in this together. That's the main takeaway. We're all in this together. There's all things we can do. I mean, we're really seeing it in Minnesota, how much community action, mutual aid. Janelle also saying, again, go to city council meetings. That's often a place where they're discussing what's going to be happening in your community, if they're going to build a data center or some other project that's going to impact where you live.
Thank you, Julie. Babette, 1 minute.
I'd say that I would like for people to get mad. It's okay to get mad. This is really not right what's going on.
Pretty serious stuff.
And to go and take action in the ways that we can. And whatever little action that is, that's fine. Support a candidate. Do more than give money if you can. Give some time, because it's knocking on doors that makes a difference when it comes to elections.
Running for the Mountains. It's not an easy film, but it's an essential one. It asks who pays the price for political decisions, who benefits, and what happens when people decide not to accept sacrifice as inevitable. It's screening February 15th right here in Sonoma at the Sebastiani Theater. Julie, Babette, Janelle, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to chatting with you and building our plan for the forum. And Janelle, let's beat the drum for your chat with the Watch Duty app fella. I'd love to bring you back on, and we can beat the drum for that too. I really appreciate your time, y'all.
Great, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
and get your tickets before they sell out.
That's right. SebastianiTheater.com for all the information. You know that theater is going to fill up. So head over to SebastianiTheater.com for more information there. Thanks all. I'm out of here. It's the Kathleen Hill Show right after this. Don't go far. More community radio all day long right here on the Voices of the Valley.